Welcome to Current Issues in Athletic Administration. We are joined today by Soledad Athletic Director Nick Twitchell. Coach, thanks for jumping on today.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Do me a favor and take us through a quick background of your experience in both athletics, coaching, and athletic administration. Just what are the high notes? How long you been doing this? What do we have from a background standpoint?
I've been involved in sports all my life from being a little kid through adulthood, and got into education in 2014 I came to sub and they asked me if I wanted a full-time job. So then I was a math teacher for a year. I have no math background at all, but I do have a degree in history. So I became a social studies teacher. I did that for 4 years. Also did a year of activities director. And then after my fifth year here in Soledad, the athletic director position came open. I was told by some very wise people that it was a good job to take, yourself included. So I hopped into that, and I've been the athletic director here. This is my sixth year. The first couple of years, a lot of learning on the job, and still learning a lot on the job. But I feel a lot more comfortable with where I'm at and what direction I want to take the program, et cetera.
Great. What I try to do on this show is provide a forum for you and me and our colleagues to potentially hear what's going on with other people at other sites. And so, what I lead with is a question that I stole from Anthony Thomas, who is the AD at University in San Francisco. And it's pretty broad, but it's something that he asks his coaches when he brings them in for coaches meetings. And I thought it was pretty informative. What weighs most heavily on your mind right now in regards to your job?
Oh man. Right now, this is a very like a site specific thing. I love Soledad, but we've not really invested much into the infrastructure of our athletic department, probably in quite a while. We have right now my soccer games, the scoreboard is not working. The alarm just goes off the whole time. So we have to turn it off. The basketball in the gym, the scoreboard has turned off during games 3 times now. And we got those, we taped everything together. They're functioning. And then we went to get some ice litter this morning, and the ice machine's not working. Yes. So it's just like we're trying to hold everything together. We're fortunate that this past November, they passed a bond here in Soledad. And a lot of that money is supposed to be earmarked towards making facility improvements. And they pitched the stadium as one of the things. The issue is, how do we hold everything together until that money becomes available and we can start doing all those things? Because right now it's like it's duct tape and hot glue and everything you can imagine to try to get things to function. So that's the thing that's weighing heavily on my mind. I got a basketball game tonight, girls, and I'm really hoping we can get through today without any issues. We got a basketball game tomorrow, boys. If I can get through that, then I can relax for the weekend. So that's where I'm at right now.
So, when you're in that situation, Nick, and you're waiting for this bond, what options do you have in regards to solving or managing, I guess is a better word, some of those dilemmas? Because it can't be solved without the bond money, right? So, what strategies have you used specifically to try to address some of these challenges that you're facing?
Long term, there's not much we can do until that bond money comes in and we can make the necessary upgrades. In the short term, as bad as it looks, we've got the little mini scoreboard with the clock that we can use in the gym. Fortunately for soccer, the refs keeps the running time anyway. So that alleviates some of that. I think just like the bigger issue is trying to make, you want your kids to have pride in their program. You want the community to have pride in your program. You want to put your best foot forward. When you're the school where the scoreboard doesn't work and you're the school where the field is flooding because it's uneven, I think it brings like a negative morale to the program. We still get to play and all that's great, but I know that the kids feel it and the community feels it when our school's the one that everybody goes, wow, they really don't have their stuff together. You know what I mean? It makes it's a hard sell. Um, we do our best. We keep everything running as best we can, but ultimately for our program to be the best it can be, there needs to be investment in anything. And I understand like our school district has a tough thing because their athletics is not their only concern. We have other issues. We have bad roofing. We need X, Y, and Z fixed throughout the district. So I understand, But also, if you want to maximize something, you got to invest in it. So with this bond, hopefully that's where we end up. Fingers crossed until then.
And in regards to the options that you have potentially, or even colleagues at places similar to yours, right? Without bond money, because not everybody has passed a bond, right? What other options do people have to try to make some of those long-term fixes when you're not sitting on this bond that's coming? If that thing didn't pass, then what?
Then, yeah. So what did cross my mind? I saw Greenfield High School did this, and John Radcliffe is an awesome guy. He does a great job. Um, they asked the community for donations, and I know at the grocery store there it was like you could add a couple dollars onto your bill at I think it's El Rancho supermarket, and that would go towards the new scoreboard. And lo and behold, they have this great new scoreboard that's awesome over at their football stadium now. That's one way it can be done. I know other schools have found sponsors, maybe a company that's willing to donate money, those sorts of things. But other things like honestly, like our field is in really bad shape. And I think without a major investment of money, it wouldn't get fixed. So looking for people to support and help is probably the next thing you could do. Um, Beyond that, you really need the powers that be to invest in the program.
Yeah, I got approached, and for those people that are listening, Jessica Church, who works for Digital Scoreboards, Jessica at digitalscoreboards.net, for anyone that's listening. They reached out to me a couple years ago where they basically offered to install a video board at their cost, and then they would sell the advertising to recoup their money. And we looked at it and it was like, look, I don't think you know where we're at. There's not a ton of people coming to Pebble Beach to advertise. And they scrubbed out the data and it didn't work for them after I told them that. But for other people that are in areas where there's more traffic and more fans and things like that, reach out. There's an option to be had potentially just by working with them on the front end because they then figure out a way to keep the advertising money on the back end. Things of that nature can help as well. All right, pivoting. What do you think if you had to categorize it, right? If that's what's weighing on your mind, how do we upkeep the facilities, right? That isn't where all your bandwidth is going, right? There are other things that get in the way. So where would you say the majority of your bandwidth is going at this time and place?
For this winter season 24-25, we ended up having a little bit of turnover in coaching. So our wrestling coach who'd been here a long time went to a different school that was closer to home. My girls basketball coach started a family, so she decided to step down. So one of the things that has been a big focus is trying to train my new program head coaches, and both of them are first time program head coaches. So there's a lot of things that they're learning that they have to do or they have to be ready for. And it's been a good refresher for me as well because I haven't hired a new program head coach. I mean, in the last couple of years, only one before this. So there's all these things that you do day to day as a head coach or program head coach that maybe I take for granted or I didn't realize. And I'm retraining all them on that. And then I'm reminding myself to go back and do all these things. It's been a good refresher for me, but there's these things that I'm like, oh, everybody knows to do that, but they don't know how to do that because they've never been told and they've never done that before. That's been a big eye opener. So there's a lot of times just working with the coaches on all the little details from fundraising to transportation to roster upkeep, et cetera, equipment upkeep that I haven't done in a while. So that's been a big chunk of my time.
What did you discover personally as you were going through all this with your coaches that you were like, oh, that's an area that as a head coach, I've been slacking off?
See, definitely I've been very lucky. I've taken for granted like my support staff, like my managers and my clock people and the people that do my book, because that's not something I've thought about in years, right? Like they just show up, they do a great job, and like they nail it every time. And then all of a sudden, it's like before the first girls' home game, they're like, who's going to do the book? Who's going to do the clock? And I'm like, oh, because the last coach had their people. And so we rallied together, we made it work. But then I'm like, dude, I really need to make sure that I first remind all my coaches about those sorts of things. But second is appreciate those people that have done these thankless jobs for me for the last 7+ years that I've been coaching, things that The clock girl's like, nobody notices the clock girl until she messes up. Nobody ever goes over to the clock person at the end of the game. Hey, great job on the clock. But if they mess it up, everybody's yelling at them. So just appreciating them and being like, man, make sure that you take the time to thank them, to honor them, etc., so that they know that they are appreciated.
Yeah, and I think we should do that anyway. You're just describing that, and I'm sitting here going, huh, yeah, that's a good point. It's like, how often do we actually go over there and appreciate them for the job that people only see them when they mess up?
It's like the refs.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at that. So I appreciate you for sharing that nugget of wisdom. Okay, last question, and here's how this works is what would you ask one of our colleagues if you could ask any of them for advice on a specific issue? And while you're thinking about that, what we've taken to doing is funneling the last question that was asked to the next guest. So you get to answer the following question from Scott Winton, who's at Livingston High School in the Valley. And what he wanted to know is in your traditional work week, how much time do you spend leading your department versus managing it?
Oof. Yeah, and that's probably something that I need to improve on because I feel like a lot of times I'm managing it. The majority of the time I'm managing it. Maybe 80% of the time I'm managing it. And so how do I take that and empower the coaches to do their thing and lead them to something instead of trying to cover up and fix little things? So yeah, I would say like 80% is managing and 20% is leading, and it probably should be flipped.
Yeah, in a perfect world, that's our job is to lead, but the logistics of our day-to-day existence get in the way. And what I'm curious about, because it's something I think about all the time, like we have initiatives that we want to do, and yet where does that leadership come from in the day-to-day management of tasks and games and other things, right? So having a student athlete leadership council or captain's council, whatever you want to call it, conceptually versus implementation, right? And so things like that. What are some things that maybe are on the burner that you haven't had a chance to work on from a leadership standpoint?
The one thing, and I saw this last year at the athletic director conference in San Diego, and we started to bring it in a little tiny bit last year, was a Special Olympics program. And so we were able to hop in with the Salinas Union High School District and do some basketball with them. We did get a grant earlier in the fall to host some Special Olympics events. And what my vision is, because I have to teach one class at my site. Right now, I do credit recovery. It's the kids are great, but it's very unfulfilling. I really don't do much. So my goal has been to start an athletic leadership class where we go over what it is to be a captain, a leader, etc. But also we would be the ones helping run, set up, and practice with the Special Olympics. And I've thought about this for a couple years, and then me and my admin team talked about it. But I have to write up a proposal. I have to do these things to make it happen. And every time I think I'm going to have time to do it, something else comes up, and I'm doing something else, and I'm putting out some fires.
On that note, if I can interrupt, this is where the show is designed to be helpful with that. So one of my best friends did exactly that at his site. And like your student government class when you were the activities director, he has a athletic leadership class as the AD. It's already written up, it's already approved. So I will connect you after we get off. You can reach out to him and you can get that ball rolling. And anyone else that's interested, you can reach out to me directly and I can connect you as well. All right, bringing it back, Nick. This is the closing question, and there will be no answer. But if you could ask any of our colleagues or fellow athletic administrators up and down the food chain of college, high school, middle school, whatever, what would it be?
I could ask another athletic director anything, what would it be? That's tough.
Other than what you just asked about and we solved. So,
Yeah, you took my question from me. Yeah, I could ask anything.
what is it you would want to know that you need help with that you haven't found a solution for?
Yeah. I think one thing that I constantly think about, and I got bailed out because of the bond, was like, how do I fix all this shit that, oh, I shouldn't say it like that. How do I fix all this shit that doesn't work when I don't have the resources to do it? Like, where do I go? What options do I have to improve my program when they're not there? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm. Yep, that's a great
that's the,
question. It's a great
yeah.
question. And there's a whole lot of us out there in the universe that are probably facing that and have found a solution to it, right? It's the inevitable thing that I ask my children when they want something. How resourceful are you? And we'll go from there, Coach. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.